Welcome, welcome, welcome. Faisal, thank you so much for being here. Platform Engineering Community Ambassador, CNCF Community Leader, Platform Engineering Master at Ahead. Let's jump straight into it. You know I don't like fluff, and I want to spend all the time I can with your awesome knowledge. So really the first thing that's on my mind is basically over the last couple of years of platform engineering, we've seen so much conversation on what is platform engineering? What is it? How is it different from DevOps? And that isn't really a topic anymore at all. Now we're talking about what is great platform engineering? How do you do platform engineering great? And
Yeah,
and things like that, really. So I just want to cut straight to it. And how do you define great platform engineering?
yeah. First of all, glad to be here. Happy to have this opportunity to connect with you, Sam, like always. Um, when I'm talking to customers, I think the way I look at it is great platforms are the ones that at least have the fundamentals down, and and specifically they're getting results, right? I mean, you got to have a product mindset, right? You got to have clear objectives right out the gate, and that you're addressing them, right? So, great platform these days are the ones that are not just focused on the usual, right? They're expanding the observability, security. They're smartly augmenting AI, maybe perhaps not with the get-go, not from the get-go, right? And they measure usefulness, right? Not some vanity matrix that you actually alluded to in the past as well, but like what's useful to your specific organization, right? If it's about security, then it's related to that. And then, another one I would think about is, they don't over-index. So yes, DORA is important, space is important, but those metrics are more tied to what your organization is looking to accomplish from a platform. Progress over perfection. I would say these are some of the high levels that at least that's what I try to focus on.
I love this idea of measuring usefulness. And I know that's something that was talked about quite a bit at PlatformCon in the panel I hosted, because it's one of those simplifying ideas, which I think
Yeah,
really platform engineering at its core is about simplifying.
yeah,
People come
yeah,
and ask
yeah,
me, what should we be measuring? Which of the six different frameworks? How should I be
yeah,
measuring this? Which item?
yeah.
And it's like, is it useful? What is your goal and is it useful? And it's really interesting for me that you mention observability, and then alluding to this idea of the expansion out. Now, of course, you're not going to start there immediately, like you said.
Yeah.
You're starting small, you're making sure that you're getting those fundamentals. And when we talk about fundamental platform engineering, maybe it isn't day one observability, but the really great platforms that we're seeing are the ones that are shifting into
Yeah.
new domains. It's this great catchphrase that I think Casper coined, this idea of platform engineering eating the world. And it's a great phrase. I'm seeing it in conversations, but you're probably having 10 times the conversations I am, and really working in the enterprise. I'm curious from your perspective, like how much is this idea of, observability, security, that them being shifted into the platform, them being a key part of this platform engineering story.
Yeah, yeah. So I think observability obviously is important, right? I mean, it's one thing to say that you have an issue, right? And that's monitoring, right? Monitoring is enabling you, it's collecting and processing telemetry, right? But an observable system aims to provide an understanding of why an issue has occurred, right? And I think that why is important. So to put it another way, and especially for platforms and platform engineers only, right? Um, Observability means having a comprehensive understanding of your system's behaviors, and then being able to effectively diagnose those incidents, right? And the most important thing is ensuring that monitoring tells you something is wrong, whereas observability is telling you the why. And just maybe to add a little bit more, like we at Ahead, like we're working with large enterprises, right? And observability to us and our customers is like a first class part of the platform. So yes, there is an MVP, but when you bake in observability, it needs to be reliable. It needs to be usable and out of the box and often part of the initial journey. So again, organizations are different, but when you're starting out with platform engineering, through integration and delivery pipeline and that's where most of the customers start. Observability ends up being a must-have, right? right after that.
Sure. And what about the security side? Is security something we
Absolutely.
should just leave to, security team, or is this
No.
this is a platform domain?
Yeah, and so by the way, I work a lot in the healthcare and financial services sectors, right? And so um, when we are working with customers, right, and we're building a platform, to them, security is a must. It's like it's just a continuous and integrated part of the overall developable platform, right? And so um, what does that mean? Security could mean that, you're giving developers, maybe not giving them a production access, maybe not giving them access to those namespaces, right? So building that internal governance is really a key, right? You can address some of these challenges, based on the securities and controls. But just in sort of a product owner, um, have a risk owner maybe, right? So we talk to customers a lot about product owner, but when it comes to security, and especially organizations that are focused on security and compliance from healthcare, financial services, we're trying to figure out if adding a risk owner, right, to could be could
Hmm.
help address some of the gaps as well.
That's extremely interesting. That's super, super interesting. I'm curious, like maybe if you can spend a bit more time talking about that. And really, I think perfect, perfect succinct moment, because this is something where, maybe I'm a little bit, I've heard it touched on, but I don't think anyone really has defined, how do we assign a risk owner for a team? You know,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah,
set the risk owner for your platform engineering initiative?
yeah. I think a risk owner needs to be sitting very close. A risk owner could actually be one of your stakeholders, right? And I've seen this with organizations quite a lot where a platform engineer, maybe a dev engineer is in the mix. There's a product person that's kind of helping, but you can't have this risk owner maybe be part of that team. It could be one of your stakeholders in the securities department, right? And they are helping you identify and mitigate those risks. It could be platform as a code, right? Through Sentinel policies, right? It could be, I don't know, implementing OPA. It could be multiple things. It could be somebody who's gatekeeping and saying, okay, this golden path looks great for a lower environment, but thou shalt not do this in production. So maybe you're gatekeeping it through your pipeline, right? So the job of a risk owner, um, on its own could be quite far-reaching
Hmm.
for the platform.
And I'd imagine, I mean, all the more important in the age of AI. I know the topic of our conversation today is going to be, will aim to be the one topic probably of the year where we don't talk too much about AI. I know we're talking together in San Francisco on AI exactly. But I mean, AI and risk are probably at this point key synonyms. I mean, I'm curious how this risk owner, especially in relation to the platform, connects with the AI topic.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I think we kind of talked about this crawl, walk model and run, right? So you kind of start out with building a bare minimum platform as a product that shows value, and then you kind of start to augment all these things, including AI, into the mix. But when it comes to AI and security, I think there's a lot of work, by the way, is happening in the community through gateway agents and things like that, right? So we're seeing a lot of influence early on, say with AI gateways, where you're like, how do I handle the flow of data? How do I handle the secrets, the tokens? Like, how do I handle what I'm going to share with this model? How do I make sure that this does not leave my ecosystem, right? So, AI and security, I think at the very onset, we're having conversation with customers around how do you mitigate some of these concerns around security in your platform, especially as you start to augment and leverage. And again, use cases are different, right? Are you leveraging AI to enhance your platform, or are you building a platform for AI? And so, there are two different areas, and how you implement security and how you enforce it, two different things.
I mean, it's no surprise that people are confused, really. I mean, you touched on these two angles, and I think,
Yeah.
I like you, am quite lucky. I get to talk to many, many, many people about platform engineering. I would say sometimes I get to talk to someone like you, where I just sit there and I try and absorb knowledge because I know 1% that you do. Um, but really, a lot of the time at conferences, it's people coming to me and they're like, hey, I'm working at a big enterprise. We got a platform initiative, security is total confusion. We have no idea what to do. How do we build in the guardrails? And
Yeah,
it really is no surprise to me that this kind of idea of a golden age for service providers, there's a reason
yeah,
why ThoughtWorks, there's a reason why Ahead um, are adding so much value at the moment.
yeah.
And I'm kind of curious from your perspective. You are one of these people who gets to sit in to go help. Why do you think platform engineering is something that has been, so crucially needed to kind of get help from maybe external people?
Yeah. Um, Fair question. I think the way I look at my role is to kind of help organizations think through this journey, right? And the job of a service provider is to be that guide, that enable mechanism, somebody who provides knowledge, maybe helps create roadmaps, maybe helps with MVPs, right? And maybe even provide some therapy sessions, right? There are a lot of frictions, right? When we go and walk into organizations, like there's maybe an existing DevOps setup, maybe there's some sprinkling of SREs, and then there's this infrastructure as code team, yeah, trying to figure out and fill the gap of what that platform engineering structure looks like, right? So I think we kind of start with the change leadership and organization design, right? Like how can we help you articulate your own vision, the map, right, of the stakeholders, and how do we ensure that there's a shared responsibility, right? Not just ship more infrastructure in the name of platform engineering, right? So, and that's the messy part is the middle where you're helping look at existing processes and people, not just technology, and trying to figure out
Mm,
how to how to make a platform engineering journey successful and sticky, right? Talk about other things like product mindset, right? Like I kid you not, like I'll talk to a team about platform engineering and somebody raises a hand in the back room. They're like, "Hey, I think the role of a product owner is going to be mine, and I already kind of have this vision." I'm like, "Great, let's have a talk with
nice.
you, right? About what that product owner roadmap might look
Mhm.
like, right?" And then like there's hotel and other observability, for example, right, is huge, right? So you have frameworks, right? So how do we leverage community vetted patterns, right? So so providers like us, for example, we're embedded in those platform engineering community, right? Like I'm part of platform engineering community, as you said, CNCF, and so one way that we can move faster and help a customer move faster is through providing those proven frameworks and training, right? I think you kind of alluded to ThoughtWorks and how they kind of help align with community and compound planning results as well. So a lot of those things, I think from a service provider, and I can go on and on, but like helping build capabilities at pace, right?
Mm,
Right sizing it, guiding it. There's a lot of tech creep out there. There are a lot of vendors out there, right? So the job of a service provider is to kind of help navigate that portion and say, thou shall start with this as your MVP. Do not get overly excited about technologies, and let's right size the solution. So it's like a combination of, we can talk about this all day long, but it could be a combination of a lot of these
mm.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so many of the things that you touched on there are part of the challenges that come up when I'm talking to people. They're asking me potentially for advice, and I'm like, hey, platform engineering, the key differentiator is this product mindset. You know, how did you build your roadmap? Do you have a roadmap? And they're like, no.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
okay. How are you deciding what features go on the platform? We just decide. I'm like,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
are you doing user research? Are you talking to? No, we just have a beer and decide. And I'm like, okay. And
yeah,
so it ends up not being so crazy when I think about it that the people who often click kind of fastest with a lot of the platform engineering stuff often have had to have a kind of customer orientation thinking. An engineer who is also
yeah,
maybe a service provider or a consultant has kind of been forced to already have that product thinking a little bit, that external thinking. And so there is a natural overlap. And so it makes sense when the organizations that I talk to, who are the most successful, they're really, they're that top 5% who are crushing it in platform engineering. Well, they've got a leader who's driving it who really is customer oriented. They probably came from a consultant background. They really think customer, they're sure they're an engineer, but often the technical know-how is never the gap, like you said.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not about, oh, did we use Port or Cortex or Backstage? Is it what orchestrator did we pick? What provider are we? That's not going to make or break. It's,
yeah,
do you have a platform as a product mindset? Do you have a roadmap? And I think that roadmap point really stuck with me. I'm currently writing the state of platform engineering report, which maybe you who are watching, maybe it's out already. You should go download it. Um, Maybe it isn't out already if I've been slow. But one of the questions we asked about there is, what is the biggest thing that you need help with? What are you most struggling with? And
yeah,
60% of the people surveyed said road
yeah,
mapping.
yeah,
They're like
yeah,
60% of them like, we need help setting our roadmap. And I'm really kind of curious about diving into that a bit because it's such an obvious win state, and yet it's a thing that people struggle with, and it's something I know that you do. And so I'm really curious for those teams who are struggling with road mapping, what your advice would be.
yeah. I think start with right sizing and having an idea about what is it you're trying to solve, right? I mean, yeah, the platform engineering community has done a great job, right? Kind of talking about, right? Like, don't start with the door when you're building a house, right? I think Luca or somebody else kind of alluded to that, or at some point. But like when I talk to customers and specific to the roadmap, it's like, what is it that you're trying to solve today? For example, if it takes you 10 hours to build an environment for a customer and you're getting these requests 20 times a month, right? That's 20 times 10, right? There
Mhm.
goes your, 200 hours in a given month, right? So choose your MVP, keeping your customer and those frictions in mind. If that's where the challenge is, if that's where the friction is, do you want to address that, right? But kind of going back to, and road mapping can be like, oh, like with one of my customers right now, we're kind of starting with the integration and delivery plane because they just certainly need a CI and CD discipline. They want a lot of things. They want observability. They want security. They want, some people have talked about, oh, how can we leverage AI? It's like, let's start with the basics, right? Let's get the bread and butter out of the way. But just kind of thinking about the other question you asked, like as far as back I can remember in my own career, the getting product and engineering leadership to view platform, for example, we call it platform today, it was just infrastructure engineering, I guess, a while ago. To view platform investment as strategic and
Mhm.
not like overhead or a cost center has just been the biggest challenges, right? I think oftentimes IT is like a cost center. Platform teams struggle for headcount because you got to showcase value, right? And I think there's a way to do that. Another way that I kind of do it is like kind of start with value mapping stream, and I think again, platform engineering community has done a great job. It's like, okay, let's break down these into chunks. Where are you spending time? Where's the biggest gain that you're going to have, right? And kind of drive the conversation, because what that does is it also actually addresses your organizational change management, for example, right? And a lot of organizations will pivot to that, like, wait a minute, yes, we were talking about tools X, Y, and Z, but not so fast, right? Let's talk about what is it that really ails us in this workflow, right? And so I would say the successful platform engineering journeys are where a leader is sitting at the table. I kid you not, 10 out of 10 times when I'm having conversations with an enterprise and a leader sitting there right smack in the middle of that conversation, even if they're not being vocal, it it sends the message, the vibes in the room that, hey, this is important. This platform engineering journey is important to us. So how do we finesse out a business value? How do we create that MVP? And I feel personally, I feel that I think having a leader sits there, you know, provide that therapy session in the
Mm.
safe space, and kind of address those pain points. I think that's like the biggest victory that you can have if you can have a leader sitting right there in that conversation.
It's really the same thing from my perspective. The huge success stories that I've seen, they're always either leadership driven or it's because leadership got on board very quickly.
Yeah,
Um, those are where the wins are. We all love the idea of kind of the grassroots, kind of bottom up approach, but at the end of the day, the person who drives momentum, the person who drives budget, the person who kind of drives excitement, it is
yeah,
often going to be
yeah,
a leader. And
yeah, yeah,
I'm curious, kind of from your perspective, because it isn't always, sometimes it is the leader who's really excited and driving that. And we have a lot of people in the platform engineering community who are leaders who are trying to drive it to their orgs. But
yeah.
often your goal is to try and convince your executive or your boss. And I'd be curious for some of your advice on that. Like what are the types of things you've done to help get leaders on board?
Yeah. I think first thing first is, just kind of listen, understand, and I don't like to use the word politics, right? But like understand their challenges, understand the internal politics of an
Mm,
organization, right? I'm working with one healthcare client, and they have a new leader at the helm, right? And you have to understand at the end of the day, we might be talking about Terraform or Crossplane or Pulumi or whatever, right? Like Argo, Flux. Leaders are not excited about products, right? And I kid you not, 10 out of 10 times, a leader is trying to figure out what value you're going to provide with this platform. If I were to give you that amount of dollar, like
mm,
what is that business value, right? So again, I'm just going to go back to that, which is they have a number in mind, they have a goal, and how do you connect that? Hey, we've got ticket ops. I'm going to address this so we have a faster time to market. Okay, what is the value driver? Right, again, straight out of the textbook from platform engineering. It was like, what is your value driver? Platform engineering. Tell me more. Platform engineering to help build infrastructure, minimize abstraction layer, and provide a click-off free access so the developers can with speed, right,
mm.
go to production or build a product, right? That's what they want to hear, right? And I think that if you can show that value, it's like, I mean, one of the organization I was working with, I kid you not, their main thing was pet peeve was we hire a developer and the developer is sitting there for like 4 weeks before they do their first pull
Yeah.
request. It's like, okay, like there goes your benefit, like you're paying somebody to just sit around and do nothing. So again, it's kind of all over the place, right?
I mean, this is I think, often when people ask questions like this, like, oh, what should we focus on? We're like, well, it depends on your platform, depends on your organization. But
Yeah.
I would say 9 out of 10 of the people I talk to are like, yeah, onboarding time was one of the things we covered first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe in
Yeah.
your org, don't take this and be like, hey, Sam and Faisal said onboarding, so we're going to try and go from
Yeah.
1 hour onboarding to 30 minutes. Maybe you guys have nailed onboarding already,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
onboarding is probably something you should look at. But I think the
Yeah.
this point more about speaking the language that your leadership understand. When
Yeah.
you're talking about onboarding, you don't want to come at them and be like, naming 15 different tools and things like that. You just want to say, like, how fast can a new hire get to delivering value? And
Yeah.
then maybe even just think about it and be like, okay, how much value might that be? And then attribute, and then just say like, hey, this is a not a totally educated, this is just an educated guess on value
Yeah.
point, but you put a
Yeah.
number behind it. Don't go and
Yeah.
say some vague specific technical metric around deployment or lead times or testing cycles. Be like, hey, you know, this is how much faster we could get a feature out. Features equate to this much estimated value. That is how you're going to get a leader involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Minimize the technical jargon 95%. And I will
Yeah.
say, this is a good example of an AI usage. I know some of the people I talk to really struggle with this kind of communication. So
Yeah.
write out what you want to pitch, put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, my boss isn't technical at all. They care about making money, probably. Maybe sometimes they care about security or churn or
Yeah,
whatever, but probably they just care about dollar value. And have the AI help you rewrite it, and then you can present that. I
yeah,
find this is one of these hacks which helps some of us who are more, you can hear me. I like to gab. I can speak that engineering language,
yeah,
or that kind of that leader language, BS as other people would call it sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
But for some
Yeah.
of the engineers listening, that's a kind of a good hack.
It's not hard. I mean, it's not hard. It's like, okay, what is the ROI on this? Okay, if somebody's sitting there and they're wasting 20 hours, right? And let's just assume you're paying them $120,000, you can do the math. You can make that case, business case to say, if we spend X number, we're going to save Y because you're going to have not just one developer, you're going to have maybe five onboarding over the course of next year, right? You can very quickly, and as you said, rightfully called it out, like throw in the chat, you can say, hey, I've got X number of developers. It takes them this much time before they do their first pull request. These are the hours that we waste, and this is what we pay them on the average. There's your return on investment case that AI can build, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. Let's pull it back to the kind of the main topic at hand. And I think there's really this word here is gospel. And I think so many people are suffering from the same problems. And as platform engineering grows and matures, and grows to absorb more domains. I think, like you said at the beginning, it's natural. You're going to want your platform to have security be a part of it. You're going to want observability to be a key part of it. There's also the questions of things like data, AI platforms, platforms for AI. But let's save that for another conversation with you, probably in early next year. So let's kind of focus on this other domain point at the moment. I mean, how do you prioritize when you kind of start on these things and whether you start on them? Is it we need security from day one or we can't get
Yeah,
started? Or is
yeah,
it, let's not get bogged down dealing with security teams, let's prove
yeah,
value. I'm curious in your experience, like your perspective, what people
yeah.
should be doing.
Yeah. I think, regardless of whether it's infrastructure, operations, security, or development experience and enabling them, right? I think it comes back to talk to me about what is it that day in, day out is causing the problem, right? Apply what I call the toil test, which is if multiple teams are solving the same problem repeatedly, that's your platform candidate, right? Like, so start there, right? I mean, people are willing to tell you, like, you should by now know exactly where you're spending overwhelming time doing things that otherwise could be addressed with a platform, right? Look for capabilities like with high reuse potentials and low variability, right? Like in requirements across teams, right? That could be another one. Like, okay, look for like how can you take one thing and reuse across multiple areas, right? I would also say avoid absorbing anything that requires deep domain expertise. I think you and I kind of talked about this, and we're aligned. Like AI may not be your first thing, right? And so, if you're trying to address and absorb things into the platforms, start with the ones that are going to bring the most benefit across organization hour by hour, week by week, right? The platform should provide 90% of the solution. It's not supposed to provide all the solutions, right? You should be able to address those what I call 90% of the problem. If you can, then if you're building one-off solutions for specific teams, that's still fine. But as long as you're addressing the giant, right? The biggest of the biggest problems that are happening again and again and again with consistency.
I mean, it's about going where the value is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, you might read the article or you might heard me say, oh, platform engineering is eating the world. But that
yeah,
doesn't mean in your roadmap you write, now we eat security. And then you're like, oh, well, actually, our security is pretty good, and now we have to go get that into the platform somehow. No,
yeah,
you go where the
yeah,
value is,
yeah,
and I think that value stream mapping idea, really thinking about what are the highest value things that we can be shifting
yeah,
down into the
yeah,
platform. And if you see, oh, there's crazy issues with, I don't know, image container scanning that's loads of false starts, having to take hours of work per week. Okay, maybe that's something you can do at the beginning if it's a high value item. If it's not, then you shouldn't be arbitrarily just having like, okay, June 6th is the day that we put all of our kind of, security features into the platform. That's not how it works. That's not what platform engineering eats the world means. It doesn't
yeah,
mean, to simplify, we put everything in one bucket. It
yeah,
means when it makes sense, and often it does, when it's
yeah,
valuable, there you shift it down. And,
yeah,
I think really thinking that great line that Faisal, go where the value is, focus on the value.
yeah,
That's kind of the hack for everything, in my perspective.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I would just want to add something else there if I can.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's one of the customers I was talking to, like, oh yeah, we're pretty good infrastructure as code team. We've got all this code base. And I was like, okay, so how do you provision infrastructure? Like if I'm a dev and I reach out, oh yeah, we have a ticketing system, you go there. And then I was like, okay, that's fine still, you're maturing, that's fine. So you have ticket ops right now. And so what happens after I submit a ticket? They're like, oh, well, then we kind of reach out to you and we kind of talk about some environment specific, questions so we can refactor the code and do a pull request and then and deploy it. And I was like, okay, and how often are you doing that? Well, we get weekly requests. I'm like, that's it. Your developer control plane and kind of focusing on and finessing that infrastructure as code. That could be your platform candidate, right? I mean, CI/CD happens downstreams. Once you have the infrastructure ready, focus there, right? I mean, if you're getting challenges where the dev teams are telling you, hey, it's taking me a week to get access to an environment, despite your best effort, it's fine. Start there, right? Start improving that ticket ops, maybe, right? It doesn't have to be a heavy lift and shift, and people don't have to get, salivating with the thought of, oh, I'm gonna go buy this new tool that's gonna magically fix things because it's not, because you already have a lot of tools and they haven't fixed quite a lot of things so far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
need to get that and put it on a shirt. You already have a bunch of tools and they haven't fixed things. So why would a
yeah,
new one fix it?
yeah, yeah,
And I think for if you haven't listened to the previous interview we did, I talked to James Marcus, who's from one of the big five, and he really talks about this idea of talking to the developer, talking to the platform customer, just booking a call with them. And he was like, this can be very intimidating for a 24-year-old when the vice president is like, hey, I want to get on a call and I want to ask about your pain, and then grills them on their pain. But there's a reason why their platform has 25,000 internal customers and is killing it. You know, you need to talk to people. You need to understand what that pain is. Where can the value come from? That's really the key to it. I
yeah.
know where I'm using a lot of your time, and we like to keep these nice and succinct. But I want to soak up some more knowledge, Faisal. So, do you have any closing tidbits or exciting points for me?
No, I think I think the problem is what the problem customer brings to us, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think the platform reviewing community has done a great job kind of helping guide the conversation, and provide value where the value may be needed, right? Provide guidance where the guidance might be needed. So I think the key takeaway is, be kind to your internal peers, your stakeholders, um, and really, as you said, right, like take that time and opportunity to understand what those challenges are, and maybe, as I said before, and you alluded to that as well, create that value stream map, figure out where the value is that you can address through this platform enablement or evolving the capabilities of platform. And it's easy to create a ROI case, right? I mean, these are some things you as an engineer can do. ChatGPT is there, AI is there, right? So figure out where the biggest impact is, and all it requires is picking up, a phone or Slack or Teams or whatever, and having that conversation and keeping that safe and open space to say, hey, tell me more. What can I do to help support you? Where are you having challenges and risks? So I think platform engineering has, there's a well-defined reference architecture even for AI. right? But it's still about people, right? Have that conversation to figure out how can you enable them through that platform. That's what I would say.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. And I think on that epic close, thanks everybody for watching. And there's a lot more of these coming, and I'll definitely be talking to Faisal a lot more. There's a lot more knowledge in there I want to get to. So thanks, Faisal, for joining, and thank you everyone for watching. See you in the next
Thank
one.
you.